On September 2nd, 2024, Temtem released its final major update. Aside from future bug fixes and a few small balance tweaks, this was the last update Temtem got. The game is $45 now, and a lot has changed since my last video, and even my scrapped updated video about the final island. So let's take a look at the current state of the game, and ask ourselves if it's even worth remembering. I'm going to try to focus on new stuff compared to my last video, but I have to start with the story. It's been a long time since I finished the story of Temtem, and I remember not liking the ending at all. There were a lot of problems with the last stretch of the game, and rereading my notes on it almost makes me want to replay the game again just to make sure I got some of these things right. In particular, there's a lot of inconsistency with the writing, particularly with Clan Belsoto. There are multiple points where your character is forced to treat the clan sympathetically, and many opportunities where you're allowed to dab on them when they're down. The final cutscene has the leadership of the archipelago admit their wrongdoing for creating an atmosphere that forced so many people into a lifestyle of villainy, which I liked. But also, almost immediately after this, you find out the leader of Clan Belsoto just wanted power and had no major motivations besides this. I'm trying to avoid the major spoilers because I'm in disbelief over what I wrote down, and I don't want to misspeak, but I did hear that some things were changed about the ending, and particularly the final boss, but I don't know if anything else was changed. I talked about lairs in my first video, but I wasn't nearly negative enough towards them. These things absolutely suck. To unlock Umbra Temtem, which are basically super shinies, you need to beat the third and final lair in the game. It took me 2 hours worth of attempts to beat the lair solo, which is actually the easiest difficulty available. The RNG screwing in these things is absolutely unrelenting. I have never seen the boss of the lair use anything but mental moves, and every attempt I made had me sitting in a party with at least 1/3 melee type Tems, which are weak to mental. This feels like a very deliberate thing, and not just me getting unlucky, as when I went back to the lake lair, whose boss is an electric type, I was constantly getting mental and water type Tems, who are weak to electric. There are Tems in the pool that are good against the raid boss, and there are perks that can turn neutral or bad Tems into effective counters, but it feels really weighted into favor of the boss. This isn't helped by the extensive wait times it takes to fill a lair, the extreme price a single revive can cost, and the entry fee present for each attempt. When playing with other people, which is what you want to get the best rewards, you can do everything perfectly and still fail to even fight the boss if 1 or 2 people get curb stomped by RNGesus. While I still find the combat of the game is very enjoyable, it's frustrating to get to a spot where you can fight other people. Even with the inclusion of Showdown mode, where you can craft a perfect team with no investment needed for only a small reduction in winnings, you're going to need a guide to figure out how to play competitively. Unlike in Pokemon, the impact of TVs varies between each species of Temtem, so even statting out your monster, even if it ends up being suboptimal, requires outside resources. I don't know much about the matchmaking system, but it feels like when you rank up it means nothing. While I thankfully haven't had to wait too long for a match, unlike some complaints I've seen, I've been paired with investment levels ranging from fully trained Tems of all Lumas, to people who haven't even hit the level cap yet. Once you actually are ranked, things get a little bit more consistent, but between the inevitable stomping you'll receive along the way, and the large amount of subcategories within each rank, it doesn't really feel fun or even possible to climb the ladder. Despite what I said about building up Temtem, this game feels much less grindy to play than the other MMO and MMO-like games I enjoy. But this might just be because of my specific interest in the game. Namely, I only really care about the Temtem themselves. I never bought a house, and I managed to make my avatar look good enough for me with cheap items. I mention this because customization is where the main grind of the game comes from. There is both a feather shop and a defunct battle pass system that you can earn a variety of cosmetics through, such as mounts, titles, banners, win poses, and more. Some of these items are very cool, and there's one item in particular at the end of a battle pass that I really want, but they're also ludicrously expensive, or in the case of battle pass items, take an absurd amount of time to unlock. It's to the point where I almost wish they brought back the premium currency system, because then you could at least just buy what you want. So is there anything I actually enjoy about Temtem? Well, I can enjoy hunting for rare Temtem sometimes. There are 2 flavors of rare Temtem, Lumas and Umbras. Lumas are the equivalent of shinies from Pokemon. They're pretty much just alternate colored Temtem with some flashy particle effects on them. The rate of encountering them have changed over time, but now they're sitting at 1 in 2,000. They are somewhat stronger than normal temtems, coming with at least 3 maxed out SVs and having an SV floor of 25. Later in the game's life, Umbras were also added, being even rarer than Lumas. All Umbra temtem are jet black with pinkish purple eyes, which I'm kind of mixed on. It's a very cool color scheme, but it makes them somewhat boring to collect since they all look identical to each other. However, there is one big reason to hunt down Umbras, and that's their power floor. Umbra temtem come with maxed SVs and every possible egg move learned. If you can stomach the process of getting one, it's a shortcut to getting your tem online, assuming you're lucky, of course. But how do you actually get a rare temtem? A few methods have been added over time. The earliest available method is probably the Psi Park. Every week, 2 temtem are chosen to be the focus of the Psi Park, with up to 4 times boosted Luma odds. If you just want a Luma temtem, then this is probably the best place to go to, and it's how I got my first Luma. The only catch is that once you get your first Luma of that week, you can't get any more, and you'll have to wait till Monday. The main way to get a Luma is through radars. While Temtem normally uses a random encounter system, radars make it so that a specific Temtem will spawn in the overworld. Up to 300 of a species can be encountered through this method, with the Luma odds being multiplied by 5 after the first 100, and then by 10 for the final 100 encounters. In addition, the SV floor of all 300 encounters is boosted to 30, meaning that even if you don't get a Luma at the end of the radar, there's a decent odd you caught enough Temtems to breed a competitive one. However, if you ever break the chain of radar encounters with a random encounter, or end up catching the Luma, the radar will break and you'll need to grab another one. Radars are also rather difficult to come by for much of the game. They're either random rewards from the very difficult Dojo rematches, or purchased with feathers from Tamer's Paradise, a post-game facility. Finally, if you're able to amass a few Lumas of the same type, you can breed them together to boost the chances of an offspring being a Luma. This is why you'll see expensive eggs with suboptimal SVs in the auction house, as one or both parents of the eggs are probably a Luma. Notice that for almost every single time I mentioned getting a rare Temtem, I said you were going to get a Luma and not an Umbra. That's because the only way to improve the 1 in 20,000 odds for getting an Umbra is through Umbra radars. These can only be obtained by trading in a Luma Temtem for Umbra drops, the currency for buying Umbra radars. My first impression to this system was that it was totally insane, because there's no way someone would give up a Luma Temtem for getting an Umbra. But actually, I've traded in a few Luma Temtems of my own, and even an Umbra towards getting an Umbra Temtem that I really wanted. Speaking of all this hunting, Free Tem got changed during my absence from the game, and I'm not sure how I feel about the rework. Now instead of every Tem you release getting you some amount of money, there are 4 focus species that you need to catch and release, from 5 to 90 of them, depending on how rare the species is. You do get a lot of money from hunting just one of these hunts, but they're incredibly boring to do, especially if you're not interested in breeding for a certain focus species. I think I prefer the mindless grind of catching whatever and getting rewarded from it. Although the new format isn't so bad if you get a really rare Temtem that you only need to catch 5 of. While recording the audio, I realized I've been extremely negative towards this game, and that's not exactly how I feel. The Tamer's Paradise, for example, is a very fun game mode that unlocks at the end of the game, and it's effectively the battle frontier of Temtem. While the ever-shifting tower is almost unplayably bad 99% of the time, and the duo lair is about as fun as a regular lair with less rewards, the other game modes are very addicting, and if you could bring every Temtem with you, I'd probably be playing this game non-stop. The draft function is meant to diversify your teams and stop you from curb stomping them, which I get, but I will say I'd prefer it if I could just bring whoever I wanted. So is Temtem worth playing in 2025? Maybe? Temtem's stamina system is still one of my favorite systems of turn-based combat, but being an MMO light actually hurts this game a lot more than it helps. The only real benefit this game gets from being online is the auction house and the novelty of seeing people doing their own thing. The actual cooperative mode, lairs, are terrible and mostly based around surviving RNG than any real strategy. Maybe clubs are cool, but I never joined one because I never got invited and I don't know anyone I'd invite to join my own club. Hunting rare Temtem can be fun, but I don't think that really justifies the price of entry. You probably noticed that most of my footage in this video has been completely unrelated from what I'm talking about, and that's kind of a good manifestation of my problem with Temtem. There's a lot of content I just cannot be bothered to deal with whatsoever, but there's a few shining gems in the rough. Maybe look at the game if it goes on sale or something, but as a whole I'm not super in love with what Temtem has become, which is a shame considering how much I loved it when it first released. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. My next video will probably be on Xenoblade X, so please look forward warmly.